So we thought that it was mostly in the West where there's a clear crunch when it comes to game development. Like game software, game development is struggling in the U.S. and people are getting fired left and right. It's just in the U.S., right? 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 No, no, it's not. And why is there a hair on my nose? I have a whole. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by so many little things. ADHD, people. ADHD. Those are the terms. So, yeah, it's not just us. It's kind of happening in Japan as well. Um, but not quite in the same way because Japan's a very different place. So here's what's actually going on. So Japan's game industry may not be seeing mass layoffs, but reductions are happening, quote, beneath the surface, devs say. This is, of course, coming from Automation Media. I've never heard of these guys until now, but I saw it and I was like, let's do a video on this. Following the latest reports of layoffs and studio closures happening around the world, there's been some discussion among Japanese game developers about how industry-wide issues like rising production costs are affecting the domestic scene. Now, let me say real quickly before I keep going that I feel like some of the pressure that's happening is due to indie devs, indie studios, because they're producing games that cost a lot less, that are fun, for the most part. For the most part, there's games they never really show the good stuff as far as Nintendo's indie showcase. Like, that's not the good stuff. The good stuff is on Steam and you have to dig for it. But it is putting a crunch on everything. Games don't have to be developed and cost a huge amount of money. In fact, I think that's why we're seeing so many layoffs. We're seeing bigger corporations look at the indie devs going, wow, it didn't take them that much money and it didn't take them that much time to create this game. Why are we pouring so much money into these games? Why is this happening? Why are we pouring money into these games? Why are we spending this much money when an indie developer doesn't spend that much money and gets a game out? Something's amiss. Let's start firing people and see if we can't copy what goes on in the indie scene to an extent. In the process, a lot of people have lost their jobs, but also we're seeing newer, younger generations just kind of step away from video games. There's no better example than where I live. Today we saw like 4 or 5 kids in the neighborhood just out doing shit. And I've questioned them, and it's like, so why are you out doing all these kind of things? Why aren't you just, at home playing a game or something? Games, video games, those are for babies. Those are for babies and old men. Like, there's literally a generation and an age group that's like, video games are for babies and old men. And they're not being appealed to. Like, nobody cares anymore. And usually what it comes down to is the same thing that frustrates me and a lot of other gamers. It's the microtransactions. It's the DLC constantly. It's all of that insanity. All of that insanity is what keeps them from wanting to play that stuff. They rather lounge about outside and mess around with crap and learn to mess with motors and whatnot around here. Of course, these are probably the exception, not the rule. But I feel like that's what's going on here. Let me get back to this now, and we'll keep talking about this. I just kind of wanted to bring that up. And I feel like indie developers around the world, it's not just in Japan, like when I say indie developers are also affecting Japanese developers, I don't mean indie developers in Japan. I meant in general. Indie games can show up on any platform, regardless of where they're coming from. And I feel like that's also putting a crunch on the bigger development and the development costs in Japan. So let's keep going for that. While Japan hasn't seen on-the-spot mass layoffs happen like the U.S. has, industry professionals seem largely in agreement that this is mostly thanks to labor laws making employee terminations very difficult. On the other hand, downsizing has still been happening, just in, quote, invisible ways. The topic was prompted by Sega and Mixi game producer I can't even pronounce that. Nakamura. I'm not gonna try and say his first name. Taira Nakamura. Nakamura. There we go. Taira Nakamura, who recently commented on his X account. What, quote, one reason Japanese companies appear to have fewer instances of layoffs despite facing comparable pressure when it comes to costs, likely due to Japan's employment regulations. However, the inability to easily dismiss staff is creating a shift towards a policy of not hiring in the first place. So, yeah, they might not be exactly laying off en masse, but they're not hiring either. A lot of people are just not getting hired. And if somebody does need to be hired, I'm pretty sure, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're just going to hire somebody who's been in the industry for a while, like experience. So when they do hire somebody, it's just people who probably lost their job in one company and ended up back in the company. That's coming from me. That's not coming from them. But I would imagine that's something that's probably happening. They're not getting the new recruits that come in from elsewhere. Plus, you have a lot of foreigners moving there to work in these studios. That creates something, I'm sure. The inability to easily dismiss staff is creating a shift towards a policy not hiring in the first place. Nakamura goes on to explain that this involves reduced recruitment quotas. Why can't I talk today? For new graduates, as well as the door for mid-career hires narrowing. He predicts that creatives will find it increasingly difficult to join Japanese game companies going forward. Coincidentally, a recent survey of around 40 domestic game companies showed that only about 1.9% of aspiring game dev applicants in Japan managed to get hired. It appears reductions are also affecting outsourcing development studios much more than major game companies. In response to Nakamura, Amada Games CEO Hiromichi Takahashi commented, while no overt layoffs have been announced within Japan's gaming industry, many major game companies have significantly reduced the lines of work outsourced to external developers over the past 2 years or so. Consequently, developers continue to face considerable hardship. Japan, too, is experiencing reductions in developer numbers, just in a less visible manner. This seems to be creating a rift between major and small developers, as former Game Studio Inc. creator Okuda, Kaku Okuda, Kaku Okuda. The gaming industry has become incredibly polarized, split into a tiny handful of established, hugely successful content and everything else. There's almost no middle ground. Titles that were previously considered mid-tier in scale have likely seen their development and promotional costs skyrocket compared to before. This is due to the demand for quality exploding, coupled with work style reforms making it impossible to overburden staff, leading to inflated development costs. The expense of ensuring titles don't get buried in the market has also risen. It's also worth mentioning that aside from these examples, Japan's mobile game industry has been pretty overt workforce reductions in the form of companies soliciting voluntary retirement and offering buyouts. Just last month, Dragon Quest Walk developer COLOPL, I don't know how, Copel, announced that it had let go of 104 full-time employees out of 676 who agreed to buyouts amidst continued financial losses. Other recent examples, including Collab, Gumi, and Enish. Beyond mobile games last year, data from Japan's pension service showed that major developer Bandai Namco Studios had downsized by 117 employees in a year, although the circumstances remain unknown. Okay, so that's not surprising because that's smartphone games. That shit's been dying. Like people want to just buy a game, and the whole thing of microtransactions in smartphone games and whatnot. It's or free to play. None of that's gonna work. It's smartphone crap. Nobody cares. That's not surprising. But I still hold to it. I still hold to it. You can't see my face that well. I still hold to it that, and I could just kind of do this little number when we go back to my face. I still hold to it that part of this is what are you doing? I don't care. What was that? Shut up. My computer just started doing stupid crap. What are you trying to show me? I don't care. I do feel like looking directly at his post on X and translating it. Okay. Layoffs in the overseas gaming industry have been increased. I should look at this. Increased for 3 consecutive years, 8,500 people in 2022, 10,500 in 2023, and 14,600 in 2024. And yet, the market size during the same period has exceeded 31 trillion yen. I think one reason why Japanese companies, even when facing similar levels of cost pressure, appear to have fewer layoffs on the surface is Japan's employment regulations. It's about regulations. We don't have these kind of regulations in the U.S., and we need them. We need something similar. We need regulations. This is what wow. This is why I say regulation is good. Like it or not, regulation is good. Regulation is important. Regulation should exist. It needs to exist. It has to exist. We have to have it. And a lot of people in the U.S. especially have been talked out of, thinking that we should have regulation. Regulation's bad. We need to get rid of the regulation. You got some Southern Republican some bitch sitting there saying we have to deregulate. No, you want to deregulate for your freaking wealthy buddies. That's the only reason you want to deregulate things. Regulations are good. Regulations are they're basically laws meant to protect the consumer, to protect the populace, to protect the employees. It is not there for any other reason. And then we're removing them left and right in the U.S. We have to have these things. The fact that we don't have this kind of stuff in the U.S. is insane to me. So what does this all amount to? What does this all amount to? The industry saw a peak during COVID. And apparently when you have basically it's like a bubble that filled up really bad, and now they're just letting people go left and right. They thought, they didn't pay attention to, it's kind of like what's going on with the AI bubble. A lot of money flowed into it. They expanded too quickly, too bigly. They expanded too quickly and too bigly. And now they're just having to go extreme on downsizing and removing people. If I were somebody Japanese who worked in a major company, I would start my own development studio. I would get together with some of these other folks who lost their jobs, pull together whatever money you can, and start making a game. If you can, if you have the time to do it, work on it. Do the indie thing. Make some money, start up a studio. Even if it's a studio where you're just kind of communicating between, over the internet or something, do something. I don't think it's the end for you. I don't think anyone, and this goes for the U.S. as well, if you can start doing indie and you got fired, you have the know-how, you have the knowledge, you worked in a big corporation, I'm sure you can work on an indie developed game. What the big companies have kicked out is your gain, I guess you'd say. Their loss, I would call, it's not really a loss in their eyes, but you know what I mean. Their loss, your gain. Work on something. That's my advice. That's my idea. That's what we do in the U.S., I think. I think a lot of studios, I feel like it does cost too much to make games. And part of the problem is that we feed a lot of money into making these games, and a lot of people drag their feet on getting things done. I've heard reports of this. I've heard instances where you get somebody in there and it's like, I'm going to throw up a need to do basically a board that says these things need done. And I've literally heard stories about when a higher up in the studio would put up one of these boards, people were like, I quit. There are people that are gaming the system, just sucking out every dime, every dollar they can get out of a big corporation. And these are the ones that I think lead to a lot of problems. And this is why a lot of people get fired. So I have to question if some of the people, and I'm not talking about in Japan, I'm just talking about in the US at the moment. In the US, I think you see a lot of those layoffs, it's calculated. I don't think they're all just being laid off, and I don't think it's all people who were mistreated. I think what it actually comes down to is they slowly analyze in some instances, oh, this person is just not, it's just dragging their feet and not getting anything done. We can just let all these people go. A game can get done without them, you know? And I feel like more studios, regardless if they're higher or lower, should start, hiring people in and being like, look, if something needs done, do it. If you have the know-how and you know how to do it, do it. And I feel like that's part of what's affecting the industry is people who were milking the industry. They got the job, they get paid hourly wages in the US, and they drag their feet and everything goes to shit. Game developments cost so much more because of that, I feel like partly. Partly. I don't think it's just that, but I do believe that's part of the equation. The other part is greed. The other part is the suits that come in. That's messed up. But to know that it's affecting Japan too means that it's a problem everywhere. It's just that they have regulations put in place to prevent people from being fired outright. Mass layoffs and everything. They can't do it. And if it looks like a studio might go, it's like, you know what, we'll give you some money if you'll take it and go ahead and go, please. And we're gonna die if we keep you here. It's kind of like I like to equate it to the whole thing we used to have where we would quote thin out the numbers of a species of animal to keep to keep the species from dying off, from starvation and whatnot. It's kind of a similar thing, and so it's like to keep the company afloat, we're gonna have to ask you to go. We have to, otherwise the company will die. That said, I'm not saying that big corporate interests aren't to blame too. They are. They absolutely are to blame. I feel like it's a culmination of things that are going on. It's interesting. And I feel like it's part of why things are in the direction that they're going. The use of AI and whatnot. They're trying to keep these numbers up. Personally, I wish more investors would stay the out of the industry. Stay out of it. If you're an investor, stay the hell out. Stay out. You don't belong in it. If you don't understand the industry, stay out of the industry. Don't invest in it. Stay out of it. Man.